Welcome to the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Pluff. Each week, we will cover various topics that dads struggle with in their fitness journey. I'll give you actionable steps that you can apply right away, not only to take back control of your own health, but so you're able to be a better example for your kids too. All right. Welcome in. Thanks for spending part of your day with me today. It's been a busy start to the year so far. I'm sure it has for you as well. We're already over halfway through January, which is pretty crazy. And so glad you're here. We're going to be jumping in today. We're going to be talking about why you should be working out for what you want to do rather than what you've been told you should do. So I think this is a really important topic. And so we're going to dive into that. Now, this topic has really been something that I've been kind of harping on, especially with my clients over the past few years, especially as I've gotten older, as I've had, I would say, just more life experience. Injuries have occurred and things like that. And I've really started to notice that there are certain things that maybe some of the loudest voices inside like the fitness space are talking about, but it's not necessarily resonating with me, and is maybe not necessarily resonating with you either. So that's really what I want to dive in today. And so just to kind of go a little bit deeper there, what I meant about just like injuries and just kind of, how it's kind of affecting me personally. This past week, I just had hip surgery, and this is actually the second hip surgery I've had since May. And so this original injury that I had I was 12 years old. So about 20 years ago, I injured my hip. I was still growing at the time, going through puberty, and so things probably just didn't set well. It never healed properly, and then caused me just my gait, the way I walked, just to be affected a little bit differently. And then obviously that causes back issues, causes hip issues on the other side. And so hopefully this is the last surgery I'll have to have. And so I'm recovering from that. It's almost a week out of rehab now. I guess the good news is that I've gone through this before, so I kind of understand the process, but definitely still challenging. And it's cold outside. Last week we got 18 inches of snow. We got 15 inches in one day. And so we had tons of snow. And so it's been cold outside. I haven't been able to get outside as much. Obviously, I'm moving around on crutches right now. And so it's definitely played a toll, I've noticed, on my mental health. And I think that just kind of brings it back to, the topic that I want to kind of dive in today is about figuring out, what's going to work for you. Why do you want to get in shape? Why do you want to exercise? And for a lot of people, there's different reasons. I think most of our younger life, the reason we exercise, if you're involved in sports, is to get better at what you're doing, right? Maybe you got. I did not get into weightlifting really until college. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't work out a lot. I exercised. I always fell in love with fitness at a very young age. I was working out when I was in middle school, when I was in high school, but I was doing mainly like body weight stuff. I was doing push-ups, pull-ups. I was doing plyometrics and things like that. But for me, I was always, I'm 5'5" now. So you can guess how tall I was when I was younger. I was always one of the smallest guys on the team. So for me, it was a way to compete, right? I was a fairly athletic kid, but even though I was athletic, I was still much smaller than everybody. And so I had to have an edge, right? And so that's what motivated me when I was younger. I started doing plyometrics in middle school. I don't know about you, but you probably don't know a lot of people who started, working out that consistently that young. And I could definitely see the benefits. It definitely helped. It definitely gave me an edge. And so that was kind of my first introduction to exercise. And I loved that. I loved how it transferred over into just making me faster on the field. I did really well in track. I was able to jump a lot higher than a lot of my teammates and stuff. And so I saw that really early on, and I saw that the work I was putting in was worth it. And so it just motivated me to continue to, get stronger, to work a little harder, to stay disciplined. And so that's something that, I was able to kind of figure out very early on. Obviously, a little later on down the road, had some injuries. But obviously I was able to push through them and stuff. But now I'm to a point right now where, 20 years removed from that, where, being the strongest, being the biggest, being, the most cut guy in the gym isn't necessarily what I'm going for. Now, obviously, like I want to be muscular. I want to be in shape. Like it feels good to be in shape, right? Once you've been in shape before and you kind of let yourself go, you kind of always have this, there's kind of always this like inkling that, makes you want to kind of get back to there. I know for me that that's been true as well, right? I know what I'm capable of. I know the times when I'm not as disciplined in some of those areas. I've seen the effect that that has on me. But most importantly, it's figuring out, what I can do with what I have right now. Obviously, having two hip surgeries this past year has made it difficult for me to find a consistent routine, right? It took me months after my first surgery in order just to be able to get back into somewhat of a routine as I was before. I couldn't lift weights for a long time. I could do some weights, but I couldn't lift my leg up. So like heavier weights, I couldn't use heavy dumbbells. I couldn't get them up to be able to get them, above my head, above my chest when I'm doing a chest press or something, because I couldn't use my hips. I couldn't use my knees to assist the dumbbells up there. And so I wasn't able to do that for a long time. I wasn't able to sprint. I wasn't really able to run. I could ride a bike, but still, like obviously there was still some pain there, and so I kind of had to figure out like where, like what I was able to do. And for me, for a while there, it took a really hard, I would say, mental toll on me. I'm somebody who really enjoys, going for long walks and doing it very frequently. And when you factor in, one, I was on crutches, so I couldn't do that. Two, I just didn't have the physical capacity to go longer than, a couple blocks at the time. Spending all that time inside, and the fact that, I work from home, I wasn't outside a ton. And I noticed kind of a huge mental toll on me there. And I didn't deal with that very well. So obviously, I have previous experience. I have, that, I kind of have that in my cookie jar there where I can kind of dig in and kind of, learn from those, previous experiences coming into this hip surgery. And that my challenge right now is it's just been so cold. We've had so much snow and stuff, and so I can't go walk around the yard. A lot of people haven't cleared their sidewalks off yet, and so I trying to be going outside and just sitting in a chair, right? It's I can't really drive too much right now, and so I know for me that if I don't do something, if I don't find something, that I'm just not going to feel very good. And I think that goes for much more than just having hip surgery, or just like for this is very temporary for me. And so obviously I want to make the best of it, but I think this goes for, your day-to-day life, finding what's best for you. I've had times in my life where I was very strong on certain lifts, right? I've had times in my life where I could bench press about twice my body weight. And so like that time for me, is that ever going to happen again? Possibly. I don't know, but that's not necessarily what I'm going for right now. Right. Sometimes just, lifted heavy. If I push it too hard, sometimes I get a little excited, then my joints hurt. And then I'm not able to, pick up my young daughter. I'm not able to run around with my kids. I've got 3 young kids. And so for me, that's very important. And when I had my first hip surgery, that was something that I noticed that was really tough for me. Just it was summertime, or right before summer I had surgery. So during the summer, I wasn't able to, run around in the backyard, play soccer with my son. I wasn't able to do much at the pool with the kids. I wasn't able, to even be able to pick up my youngest and put her in her crib for bed. And so that was really hard for me. And that, I mean, obviously, we can look and say, these are the important things in life, but when those important things in your life are actually taken away and you can no longer do them, that's when it becomes real to you. And so that's something that I really stress with my clients, is figuring out, what's gonna work for you. Where do you really want to be? Maybe in high school, maybe in college, you were a power lifter, and that season of life, that's what you love, that's what you enjoy doing. But now you've got 3 kids, you've got 4 kids, you got a full-time job, you're married, you have all these responsibilities. Is that realistic for you right now? Some people may not like, cardio. They may not like going on long walks. They may not even like running, but maybe that's what you're able to do right now. I'm not, me personally, I'm not a great long distance runner, but I'll be honest, sometimes I just really enjoy it. I'm not fast. I mean, you could, there's going to be young kids that are going to be passing me on the on the street there, but sometimes it's just nice. It's nice to kind of push myself to do some of these things where I can just, it just feels a little bit different. I like doing high intensity, cardio sessions, doing longer duration, kind of more steady state cardio. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't love doing it while I'm doing it, but that feeling I have afterwards, I feel great, and it makes me want to come back and do it because I know once I'm done, it's gonna feel so much better. And so for me, it took me months after my first surgery to get to the point where I felt like I could even do some of these things. And so this has been kind of a strange transition for me personally because I got to the point where I was feeling really good. My left hip was feeling really good after surgery, about 6-7 months after surgery, and now I just had another surgery on the other hip. So now I'm going all the way back to step one now, right? But like I said, I have these previous experiences. I have these lessons that I'm able to apply to what I have now. I know when I had my first year, I did not do very well, right? I mentally, it was very hard for me to be inside. I'm not somebody who likes to just be inside all the time. I go for walks regularly. I like to be very active. I work out multiple times a week. And the spring and the summertime, I like to play on a old man slow pitch softball league. I love playing basketball. I have not had the chance to do that regularly in a long time, but I was able to do none of that for quite a few months, and that was really hard on me. I have a home gym at home. I have lots of equipment here, but when you're always at home, when you work from home, when you're the only time you're really getting out of the house is when you're going to physical therapy, that that can play a toll. And to be honest, though, that's how a lot of people spend their day-to-day life. Though they go to work, they come home, and then that's all they're doing, right? And so for some people, going to the gym is a great outlet. I actually bought a gym membership after my first surgery. I have access to a gym that I train my clients out of, but they don't have as many machines and things like that. And so I bought a gym membership to another gym close by, and so that I was able to kind of get out of the house a little bit and kind of do some exercises, do some of those things, because I know for me, just staying inside all day long, it wasn't great for me. And I just didn't feel my best. And my goal really was to just to be moving, to just feel a little bit better, to get back to being able to run around with my kids, to go on walks with my wife and the kids in the evening, to go to there's an elementary school down the street from our house. We go to the park all the time. And when I wasn't able to do that like that, that was tough for me. And so I think that kind of puts things into perspective, and that may be a spot where you're at now, right? So we talked about, maybe you want to get back into, powerlifting. I don't know. Maybe you did CrossFit years ago. Maybe you were playing sports. Maybe you want to get back into those. That's great. But maybe that's also been 20 years. Maybe that's been 30 years. And jumping back into, you're wanting to get to your high school weight or kind of be as active as you were then. Is that realistic for you right now? It might be. I don't know your schedule, but I know for the majority of my clients, that's not realistic, right? They just want to feel a little bit better. They want to be able to, have a little bit more confidence. They want to feel like each day when they wake up, they have the energy to actually make it to the evening, right? It's not fun, being exhausted, going to bed at night, waking up in the morning, kind of rushed for work, go to work all day, come home, have dinner, and then being exhausted, not being able to spend time with your kids, not being able to spend time with your wife. Like that is a very tough feeling, right? And so you may never get back to how active you were when you were in high school, and that's okay, right? There's ways to still be active. There's still ways to get in great shape. When you're younger, you're playing sports, you're obviously moving a lot more than you are now. Unless you're working construction right now, unless you're doing a job where you're constantly on your feet walking around all day, there's a good chance you're not going to be able to kind of match that activity level, but that's okay. We can figure out where you want to be right now. But one of the biggest things I always focus on with my clients is the very first thing we're trying to get handled here is how can we fit in a couple strength training sessions in a week. Now, these don't have to be long. The majority of my clients' workouts are 30 minutes. If you can do 30-minute strength training sessions a week, you're going to feel so much better than you are right now. If you go from 0 to 3, and it doesn't have to be this week. It could take, a month or two to ramp up. You go from 0 sessions to 1 session to 2, 2 to 3. Maybe eventually you're getting 3 sessions in, you're getting a couple cardio days in a week. Like you're going to be feeling so much better. And for some of my clients, the cardio sessions they do are simply just long walks. 30 minutes in the morning, maybe 30 minutes at lunch, 20, 30 minutes at night, right? Now you don't have to do all of those. If you could do all 3 of those, like that would be fantastic, right? That's probably going to get you close to about 10,000 steps a day if you can get 3 30-minute walks in. But with your schedule, most likely you're probably not going to be able to get all of those in. But if you could get one of those in, if you could get, a 15-minute walk over lunch, clear your head, get outside, you're going to be feeling so much better. And so when we look at information online, like there are tons of big names that I follow. Some of them I have met personally, and these guys are in great shape. They are very intense with their routines, and it pays off for them. But unfortunately, a lot of what they say, a lot of what they teach is not relatable to me, and I'm sure it's not relatable to you either, because many of these guys don't have kids. Maybe they're divorced, and so they only have their kids half the time. Their kids are older, and so they're out of the house. Or, unfortunately, sometimes this is true too, they just don't prioritize being a dad as much as I would like to, right? And so I'm not saying their way of living, I'm not saying anything they're doing is right or wrong. Their priorities are different, right? For me, my priority is number one, it's going to be my family. My fitness is very important. My work is very important, right? Going to the gym is important for me, but I've also built a home gym, and so that I don't have to leave all the time. I like going to the gym some of the time, but I don't like to spend an hour or more away every single day when I'm already busy. My kids have, sports events, they have, school events. I want to be involved in that. And so for me, right now at this stage in my life, being the biggest, strongest guy in the gym is probably not ideal for me. And so maybe you're in that same situation, right? Maybe you don't have time, or you don't want to be the biggest, strongest person in the gym. And that's okay, right? But you can still get in great shape. You can still feel so much better just by spending, 2, 3, 30-minute sessions a week training your body, just strengthening your body, using your body the way it was intended to. Like we were not built to sit at desks, right? We were not created to just be stagnant all the time, right? So the more we move, the better we're going to feel, and we're going to eventually get to the point where we have that energy where we can, really do whatever we want. We don't have to think about it, right? When our kids ask us to go to the park, we're not going to have to think, wow, man, it's been a long day of work. I'm a little exhausted. I can't even lift my arms right now. I'm having some shoulder pain and stuff. Because when you take care of yourself, it's just going to be who you are, right? You're going to be the dad that's playing at the park all the time. You're going to be the dad that's always involved in their sporting events because you have chosen to take care of yourself now. Now, as I mentioned earlier, one of the places I like to get all my clients to is we like to try and get up to the point where we're getting 3 workouts in a week. So 3 strength training workouts in a week, and then ideally 2 to 3 cardio sessions in a week too. For some people, that can be very challenging. And so what I've been doing with my clients now is each week, and this is something that you can institute into your life as well, you can implement into your life, that I think could be very helpful, is that each week set yourself a cardio challenge, right? One thing I kind of joke around with is that cardio is for the kids. Like your kids don't care how much weight you can lift, but they care that you're able to run around with them at the park. And so each week for my clients, I started setting a cardio challenge for them. And so that could be one of my clients wanted to go on a bike ride with his family. I think another week he mentioned he was going hiking with his family. Another example could be simply just, going for 2 30-minute walks during the week. It could be a 10-minute walk each morning, right? What's your cardio challenge, right? It could be, a 30-minute bike ride. All these things are great when you're focused on the strength training first, and then figure out how we can get the rest of this in too. And so challenges sometimes bring out the best in us. And so if you can challenge yourself to push yourself a little bit more, you're getting your strength training workouts in a week now. How can we challenge ourselves to get a little bit more? And so that's my challenge to you, is find something that, is going to align with not only where you want to be physically, but where you want to be as a dad too, right? Maybe right now you're doing great strength training. You're doing great getting up in the morning, getting your workouts in. But man, going up a flight of stairs is a doozy, right? And so maybe your challenge is you're going to get 2, 15-minute cardio sessions in this week. And so that when you go play with your kids, when you're playing basketball with your son, you're not winded, right? When you're helping your daughter with, she's doing cheerleading, maybe she's on the cross country team or something, and you're helping her, get better at that. You're not winded just helping her all the time. And so the cardio challenge is not just to enhance your own life, but it's going to help, you just be a better dad. It's going to help improve your family's life is too. And so when you're figuring out where you want to be right now, it can be easy to look at, some of the biggest names in the industry and wonder why, why you can't do that, right? You're looking at these powerlifting routines and these 5x5s and all these things, these CrossFit routines. Maybe that's not where you're at right now. Maybe you don't have that time right now. Maybe you don't even want to be there when you're honest with yourself. I know there have been many times in my life where I started following somebody's routine because I thought, this is what I need to do. This is what they told me. But at the end of the day, when I sat down and really thought about it, I was like, that doesn't even align with what I want right now. It doesn't even align with where I want to be. And so when you're setting your goals, make sure that they not only are going to be effective for your own situation, but they're actually something that you want to accomplish. That concludes this episode of the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. Thank you for those of you who took time out of your busy schedules to listen. If you have any questions or comments or an idea for a topic for a future episode, please feel free to reach out, and I'd love to hear from you.